Good evening, folks. It's Buddy Martin. It's Meldon Law Monday. We've got in the wings, Orange and Blue Room, one Shane Matthews. He's watching pro football tonight, as we have been for the last couple of days. Some interesting and disturbing things in pro football. And we'll see what Shane wants to note. Certainly the Dallas Cowboys, the gigantic egg they laid, and whether or not they're going to change coaches. All that, plus that very interesting interview tonight with Edgar Thompson. He had it with Scott Stricklin talking about what's going on in the world of Gator football. He sort of disputed the idea that Scott Stricklin that Billy Napier was on the hot seat, whatever that means. So a lot of language there. I know Shane's zoned in on the NFL. He's always up to date on the Gators. We'll find out what he thinks. And tonight on the program, we asked Shane, we asked Brenden Martin, and we asked Franz. What did Scott Stricklin mean when he said his coach is not on the hot seat? And this is a made-up term. Okay. If you have a chance to read Edgar's interview, maybe you've got thoughts. Weigh in with us tonight. Look forward to hearing you on Meldon Law Monday. I'm Buddy Martin. Stand by. Coming up next right here, it's the Buddy Martin Show, Meldon Law Monday.
It's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators...
We like to say, well, we play it twice. Good open. Someone said last night, the best open of any show streaming on the internet. Well, thank you for that. That's the genius work of Brenden Martin. Brenden Martin will be along later to tell us, among other things, about a new gig he's working on, and we'll get his evaluation of the coach's situation. I know Shane Matthews is standing by in the green, I almost said the green room, orange and blue room. It would be if we were in Tulane. Let me read you the premise of this again before we go to Shane and check in with him. What we wrote today on our preview of the show is Florida football. Did Billy get the dreaded vote of confidence? Scott Stricklin poo-poohed the notion that Napier is on the hot seat and called it a, quote, made-up term, unquote. What did he mean? We asked Shane Matthews, Brenden Martin, and Franz tonight on Meldon Law Monday. So we'll be doing that, getting their way in. Meanwhile, interesting results in pro football today. Bills knocked off the Steelers 31-17. Tampa Bay was leading the Eagles 10-0 last time I looked, and boy, the embarrassing one. Green Bay just sliced and diced the Dallas Cowboys. It was embarrassing. Is Mike McCarthy a goner? I don't know. Maybe he'll be Bill Belichick. Dak Prescott, how you evaluate that performance? And Dan Quinn's defense, that was a joke. Let's go right now to our good friend in the orange and blue room, Shane Matthews. He does Putt Up with Matthews. He's the color man on all the broadcasts. Can't wait to hear him back again this next year, describing the 2024 Gators. And by the way, they got a new one today, Shane. Good evening to you.
How you doing, buddy?
We're doing all right, kind of out of sorts, but we're getting back there. I'm here, as you know, in Panama City, preparing for an event this weekend and trying to keep my eyes focused on what's going on in Gainesville. I didn't get a chance to hear your show this morning, which is my first mistake, and that's how I keep up. By the way, I ran into Jay Moody the other day. You know who Jay Moody is, right?
Yes, I do.
Steve Spurrier's son-in-law. He said, I really enjoy you and Shane on the show. So I'm assuming you meant yours, not mine. But anyway, Jay Moody, of course, lives here with Amy, and Amy had a big part in the restaurant, which Steve Freddie Weeby pulled off. How you doing there, Shaner?
I'm doing well, buddy. Yourself?
I'm a little lost on what to think of this pro football scenario. As you know, I dialed down a little more on pro football in the NFL this time of year because there's no college ball to speak of. And I'm still trying to figure out how could a team like the Dallas Cowboys, number 2 seed, right, weren't they, go into their home stadium where they were 16-0 and not just lose, but get clobbered by 7th seed Green Bay Packer teams, all of a sudden look like the 86 Bears, man. What's going on there?
It's the National Football League. Anybody can win on any given Sunday, and the Cowboys, yeah, they were the 2 seed, I guess, but
Yeah.
they hadn't really beaten any teams with winning records, buddy. Maybe a couple. Green Bay had a tremendous plan. Jordan Love played outstanding.
Boy,
And
did he.
they,
Wow.
I mean, they were the better team. I haven't been a Dak Prescott. I like Dak as a person. I mean, I don't know him as a person personally, but I think he's very overrated as a quarterback. I've said that for years. I don't think he's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league, but he's like one of the highest paid guys. So I was not surprised. I actually picked Green Bay to win on my show. Now, I don't think they beat San Fran, though.
Yeah, I mean, my goodness, I had to go back and do a little research here because I know LaFleur is highly touted, but what got me, Shane, on watching that game, but we'll get to these other stories in a moment, like the sad news about a Gator passing away, Ronald Powell. The thing is here's what I saw Prescott. With today's modern technology, you can give a downfield look at what the quarterback's seeing. Clearly, he missed some receivers, and the passes that he threw were inaccurate. He wasn't on target like he'd been all year. He really played badly, couldn't get to key first downs, and the defense, I mean, what defense was Dan Quinn wanting? There were guys 10 miles in the open. I mean, I've never seen receivers that wide open. So how could a team get that bad that quick?
Well, I just don't think Dak. I mean, like I said, I think he's overrated. Cowboys just got it taken to him, and LaFleur is a tremendous play caller. When you look at Kyle Shanahan, his dad's coaching tree with LaFleur, his son Kyle, the coach for the Rams. I mean, these guys know how to dial up plays, and they can out-scheme you, man. It's fun to watch.
Well, you make a good point, and I knew Mike quite well, and when he was assistant coach of the Broncos, and really campaigned for him to become a head coach of the Raiders. I thought he could do the job. He didn't, of course, but he became a great coach. Came back and did it in Denver. And the one thing I didn't know about Mike, did you know that the first time they put 4 wides on the field in college football was Florida, Georgia in the 80s. And you know whose offense it was? Mike Shanahan's.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was the first.
Yeah, first one, yeah. So he's obviously a good coach. But, I mean, here's the thing about it. You often like to say guys don't become bad coaches or bad players overnight. Man, I'll tell you, it looked that way. I mean, here's a guy, Dan Quinn, former Gator, being touted for all kind of jobs. I mean, Shane, some of these guys were totally in another zip code. They were so wide open. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, great play calling. Good offense beats good defense if you dial it up right. I mean,
Yeah.
the Bucs are just manhandling the Eagles too. The Eagles are so limited offensively now that teams have tape on them because their scheme and their passing game is very, I don't want to say elementary, but teams are on to them now.
Well, the Bucs having a wake-up call here. Did I see this? Did somebody get hurt for the Bucs earlier in the first half? Evans, was it? When Evans get hurt?
He's fine. He just got stepped on. It's 13-3. It's still first half.
Yeah. What's happened to the Eagles, man? Wow.
Well, they got some guys hurt, but defensively, they're terrible. But offensively, teams have figured out Jalen Hurts. He's not a. You have to be an elite thrower of the football to have a lot of success, and I think they figured him out.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
How?
That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
People can agree or disagree with it, but if you wanted to see elite quarterback play,
Yeah.
those two dudes last night with the Rams and the Lions
Right.
are elite. They are
Yeah.
elite.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. They really are. I'll say that for sure. Well, how are things going other than the Dallas debacle in the playoffs so far?
I think everything's going about what people thought. You know, the Chiefs won. The Bills won today. I think most people, even though the Bucks were an underdog, I think people thought the Bucks were the better team, and they're showing that tonight. And so I think it's, next week you're going to have another round of good games.
Yeah. You like the Lions.
I picked the Lions to go to the Super Bowl.
I know.
They'll have to probably play Tampa. Well, they play the winner of this game in Detroit next week. But I don't know if anybody in the NFC can beat the 49ers.
And they got it all going on. They can certainly do it. Well, let's talk a little bit about. We'll do a commercial in just a second, but I want to talk about this story. I know you haven't had a chance to read it, and I'll just tell folks who have not read it. If you get a chance, Edgar does a really good job as a reporter. You have him on your show. You'll probably have him this week. He came on. He did the show. He wrote an article interviewing Scott Stricklin in the halftime of a basketball game, and got Stricklin to say more about the situation with Napier than anybody I've heard so far. He basically said that his coach is there, and he says that he's got a contract in place. So Stricklin has said everything you're talking about is Simpsons. The cause is the record. He said, I thought it was the other way around, but he said one of the things they want their roster to be is older. Now, that's the first time I've ever heard that as excuse. The roster is not old; it needs to be older. Older teams beat up younger teams. You look at the teams that played in college football playoff. They were a lot of veterans on those teams. One of the keys in college football, really, and all of college sports these days, you need to be old and need to figure out a way to stay old. So we're going to be older, he says, which is a good sign. And here's his big statement. He says, I believe in Billy. I believe in him as a person. I believe in him as a leader. I believe in him as a coach. The way he evaluates people, I just believe in him. He's a guy who, if given enough time, is going to be successful. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with that. Well, we all wondered whether he would get that time, and what Strickland's telling us is he's going to get it. And you said you didn't think he was a bad play caller, and we haven't seen the visibility of changes. What have you heard? What have you heard that you like so far about changes, and what are you concerned about, Shane?
I'll be honest with you, buddy. I have not heard a whole lot. I've been kind of into the NFL thing right now. Mm-hmm. I'm a little surprised that he still kept 2 offensive line coaches. Now, that still could change, I guess. But I'm a firm believer. I think his play calling is fine. Can it be a little more aggressive? Surely it can be. But the bigger issues were other things defensively and special teams wise that really hurt this football team, in my opinion. So, being older, I don't know if we're going to be much older, but, the veteran, older type players are the better teams. And, I mean, if you look at Ole Miss, who basically does nothing but get people out of the transfer portal, they're getting guys who played,
right,
which are older guys.
Right. Yeah. Perry Mason says he got called out on the Steve Russell show. Let's see. I can't understand that. Anyway, so yeah, here's what the rest of the story says. It said, and Edgar's a good reporter. He said, meanwhile, Napier has not hired someone to overachieve to oversee the special teams, despite costly miscues during his season opening loss at Utah. Asked whether Napier's 2024 coaching staff is set, he said, "We're always looking at ways we can get better." Stricklin insists the Gators are on track under Napier, also understands the consternation of mid-Gator Nation. "I get it," Stricklin said. It comes back on the record. You make a field goal against Arkansas, you stop a fourth down in Missouri, the record is still not what you want, but it's a different conversation. The temperatures come down a little bit. Everything you're talking about are symptoms. The cause is the record. And you know, he's got 7-year, $51 million contract, and quite a bit of that, $25 million for a buyout. There's your answer right there, Shane.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what most of these coaches have nowadays, $20, $30 million buyouts. So, look, nobody has any answers to this until we play the games next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, that's fair enough. Take a break here real quick. Let's go talk to our good friend Jeffrey Meldon, and back with Shane Matthews. Pick his brain about what else is going on in the world of college football. Jeffrey Meldon. Jeffrey, you do a show where you get asked a lot of questions. I've got one for you right now, okay, regarding how do you know whether your case is being handled right and what to do about it. In medicine, you can get a second opinion if you're not satisfied with the doctor's opinion that they have. And do you have that in law? Can you do that with lawyers?
Yeah, buddy. As a matter of fact, we get quite a few calls from folks that have signed up, particularly with the big box law firms, that they do a hell of a good job of putting ads on TV, but after that, they don't really measure up to the way we try to create a client experience that's outstanding. And we're always willing to review a case and give a second opinion, just like with a doctor, because not all law firms are created equal.
I guess that's the normal thing. Just go to Meldon Law, Google it, and find out, and just give them a call. And like you say, if you come in, you get to see a Meldon. You don't get shuffled off to somebody else. You get to see a Meldon, and that's good to know, because a lot of people don't know how to do that stuff, like me. And maybe you can coach us through. So Meldon Law, they won't back down. They will take your questions about your case if you have a question.
Yes, whether it's a new case or an existing case, give us a call. We'd be glad to go over it with you. There's no charge to review your case with you. And a lot of times it makes good sense just to get a second opinion.
Good stuff from Meldon Law. They don't back down, but they will give you a second opinion. All right, thanks very much. I'm told I'm too far off the mic. I apologize for that. My new studio is not finished up here. Brenden Martin will join us later. All right, so Shane, let me tell you what Matt Hayes said on Saturday Down South. He's been quite critical. Then we're going to talk about Ronald Powell. What little we know about him, his death was shocking news this afternoon, a former great player under Urban. Matt Hayes said on Saturday Down South, says, he hired a new pole strength and conditioning coach. He signed a third quarterback from the transfer portal. He tried to hire Ole Miss offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss Jr., and the offseason of change is just beginning in Gainesville, where Napier's first 2 seasons as coach at Florida have translated to an 11-14 record. Just how ominous is that start? He's the first Florida coach since 1946 to begin his coaching career with back-to-back losing seasons. Meanwhile, the combined records of Florida's opponents in the 2024 season, the first season with the 16 teams SEC, is 106-50. I'll save you the time of research. No Power 4 team has ever been had a more difficult schedule than that. Okay, let me just stop right there and tell you. Let me just weigh in on me and give me the update, the state of Gator football, where you stand right now on Napier, what you think should be the next thing. Do you think he should be given 2 more seasons? And how do you think the Gator fans are going to take it?
Well, I think you just got to take it one game at a time. The old coaching cliche. See what happens. I mean, is the schedule difficult next year? Absolutely, it is. The first part of it, though, you could win all. You could go 4 or 5 and 0, and that would not surprise me if we did that. So, look, we just got to go play games. I mean, you just sat here and talked at the beginning of the show how the Green Bay Packers beat up on the world's greatest team of the Dallas Cowboys. You know, you got to go play, make plays, out scheme the other team, see what happens.
So what I'm hearing from you is that there's it's all salvageable, and do you expect the turnaround to happen next year?
Well, I think we all want it to. I don't know if it will or not. I mean, hell, if I could predict the future, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing here now. But look, you just got to go play. Anything can happen, and players got to make plays. Coaches got to coach. I don't. I'm just going to wait and see what happens next year.
So you're not sold on the idea that this is a dead end?
No, if it was a dead end, he wouldn't be our coach right now.
Let's look at the worst case scenarios we got. We heard about the schedule, but again, we heard about it. Going to hear about it a lot. You're right. You and I went over the schedule game by game, and we came up with like 5-1, maybe out of the first 6 games. And then, so if you get that far, you got a chance, maybe. We'll see what happens with Lagway plays or doesn't play. I think you think the quarterback is already on the team, and I think you're right, Mertz. So I'm trying to look for some kind of, if I were a stock analyst, now we're looking at stock market and trying to assess the Gators as a buy or sell about what might happen. What are my odds of getting a good price on them? And secondly, what are my odds of cashing on them?
I don't think anybody knows that until we play games.
What do you think? Boy, do you think? You're an analyst. You're an expert.
But, buddy, I don't know our players. I haven't yet to see them. I knew after I watched Graham Mertz one day in practice he was a good football player.
Yeah, and you said so.
And I trust the guys that we've signed out of the portal the last few years because those guys have been the best players on our team. So once I get to see the portal guys in action, then I can give more of a prediction. But right now, I have no idea. I can't even tell you half the guys we've signed in the portal because I don't really follow it.
How has Lane Kiffin done it?
Well, first of all, people are tired of me saying this, but Ole Miss has more money in their collective than we do. Okay? And I know for a fact, I have been told by 2 close people that pretty much every Florida player that has left to go somewhere else has gotten more money than what we had to offer them. Now, whether they would have stayed or not, who knows? But look, Lane does not recruit high school kids. He is. I know a lot of people that coach for Lane, still coach for Lane. That's just what he is. He's going to go get guys out of the portal, and that's the way he wants to build his program. And he's kind of got that laid back, do what you want to do kind of atmosphere on their football team, and some kids like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how he runs his program. And but they are spending and have more money than we do.
I would tend to believe you, and so does LSU. Here's a story that was told to me by a very good authority and someone you know. Mississippi State identified a lineman, offensive lineman, and he was a good one, maybe one of the best in the country. Excuse me. They went after him big time in his portal, and they made him an offer of $50,000. Excuse me, $100,000 to come to play at Mississippi State. You know the reaction? He laughed at him. He said,
$100,000 ain't getting nobody to play.
He said, LSU has offered me over $1 million.
Yeah.
So Mississippi State's got no chance of ever getting to that level, and I'm not sure Florida does either. They're thrown out. If they want to go out and buy the team, and that's exactly what they're doing, that wasn't supposed to be the way it was going to happen,
No, I was one that hated the NIL when it started. People bashed me on my show, saying I was jealous. Regardless of all that, hell, I didn't make a whole lot of money in the NFL. I just don't agree with buying players, and nobody's ever going to change my mind on that.
But given the system that you got and you have to do it, what is the answer now about how?
Well,
do
the
you
answer
think-
is you need to have more. You need to win some games.
Yeah.
But you have to have more money than the other schools.
All right. And do you think Florida will ever get enough to compete at that level?
I don't know. I mean, buddy, let me ask you this: if you were a highly successful businessman and had multi-million-dollar business or billionaire or whatever, you got that money because you were smart with your money. You did something right? You got a great return on your investment in pretty much everything you did. Would you participate in buying football players?
I guess that has to do with whether or not I believed in my school and believed in the coach, right? I guess that's the one.
But also, what are they getting out of it?
Well, I guess what is anybody getting out of it when they're giving you money? You know what? The same thing.
When you give money to your university, it usually goes towards a facility enhancement, or it goes to scholarships. It's going to something that's tangible, so to speak. I could give money to Buddy Martin, and you may never play very well for us. You may play only a few snaps. You may stink. And I just put a bunch of money into you, and what am I getting out of it?
Well, I guess that's the difference in putting your name on a building and putting your name in a kitty to hire players. I guess that's the difference.
Yeah.
I would never know. I never had that kind of money.
I don't either, but if I was in that position and I donated a bunch of money to, whether it be my high school, but I want to buy players to go to my high school or to my college, I would rather have my name or my kid's name or my name of whoever I want to put their name on something than to a left tackle who may leave the next year. It's just, it's ridiculous what's going on. Nobody will change my mind. It is what it is. I get that. But I have the right to say that I absolutely hate it.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And I wrote a column last week, and one you'll hate, but I thought to myself, let's take the darkest scenario that you can possibly have. I saw something, it might have been even on your link, where a blogger said, this could be the end of college, this could be the death of college football. You know, and I thought, well, let's take that premise for a second and say, was losing 3 coaches out of football, not all of them college, and certainly Nick Saban being one, and then even they were, obviously we know that the others were in pro football, but Pete coached it at USC and won a national championship too, Pete Carroll. So he did have some background. So when you start looking at the signs, and you look at how bad it is, I thought about the song, Bye Bye Miss American Pie, which is about the end of music, as you know. Don McLean's famous story. Of course, the end didn't come for music, and the end didn't come for college football. But when you look at it like that, you think, okay, how bad is this? And I asked Steve Spurrier on the phone, what are you going to do? He said, you got to have somebody to regulate it. And I said, well, who's it going to be? And he said, I don't know. I said, what about Nick Saban? He said, well, he'd be a good one if he decided to do it. Now, until they get serious enough to get a guy like Saban, or something has to happen, because it's a mess. I don't know if it's going to get straightened out. I used to think the free market would straighten it out. I don't want to be a pessimist. I still believe that college football will survive, but someone's got to step forward with some answers, Shane, and somebody's got to be a white knight.
Yeah, I mean, if they want a commissioner for college football, I would vote Greg Sankey, but I don't know. I don't know. Something needs to be done fast. I don't think it's going to happen.
No, it's not.
And it's an absolutely mess.
It is.
It almost makes you lose interest.
That's the danger. I saw this guy that was on, I don't know who the guy was, said he's given up on Gator football, doesn't know who the quarterback is, the names, doesn't matter anymore. There's that kind of thinking. I don't want to be the bearer of more bad news, but I do think it's worthy of mentioning that a terrific football player named Ronald Powell passed away this afternoon. I don't know much about it. Do you? And I will bring Franz on for a minute to see if he does. I didn't ever hear anything about him being ill, and he suddenly passed away, and no one knows why. Have you heard anything?
I have not. Somebody texted me about it, and I had no idea. I'd have no information on it at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's see if this guy does. Franz Beard, have you heard about, are you there, Franz?
Yes, I am. I've heard about his death. I'm still trying to get somebody who can give me an idea of why and what. Mm-hmm. And so far, a lot of remorse that he's dead, but no one seems to have a clue why, what was the cause.
Yeah. Shane, what is your memory of that guy? You were all playing pro football, but what do you remember? I remember Franz being a huge story. This 5-star player coming from California. Everybody saying, wow.
I think I was still playing or maybe just retired. It was just a highly recruited guy. I don't think he ever turned out to be the player people thought he was going to be.
He didn't.
If that's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I think you're right. Franz,
he was the number one high school player in the country. Was expected to be this incredible, unstoppable force off the edge. And he came here, and let's just say he got off to a rousingly bad beginning when he and some of these other young guys from the number one recruiting class didn't want to respond to the demands, and they got PO'd when guys like Mike Pouncey and others said, "You guys better shape up. This is how we do things around here." Sharif Floyd was one of them. Dominique Easley was another, and they walked off practice. And Zach Azani was sent, who was a wide receivers coach, was sent to retrieve him, and basically they took Zach Azani and hung him up on a hook and said, we only talked to the head coach. So they got off to a rousingly bad start, and I think that had everything to do with the carryover into an 8-5 season for Urban, and then subsequently you look at Will Muschamp coming in here. Shane hits the nail on the head when he starts talking about things like entitlement. And Shane came along at an era when I guess maybe there was some entitlement when you were there at UF, but I don't think so. I don't think Spurrier stood for it. I don't even think Galen stood for entitlement from what I remember of Galen. You kind of had to earn your keep, didn't you?
Yeah, I don't remember anything like that. I kind of kept to myself anyway, but we all got along, everybody, even if you were a young guy and an old guy, you just did what you were supposed to do. And if you didn't, Coach Spurrier, you could leave, do it my way or you're hitting the highway, buddy. Simple as that.
Would that work today, Shane?
I think so. I mean, I don't know, buddy. I mean, these athletes nowadays, they got so many people in their ear. If coach says one thing to you, they start pouting, and then their aunt, their uncle, their coach, their workout guy is telling them, "Hey, you can go so and so, and they're going to pay you more money." That's all it is. It's a money. Everything is a money grab in college football these days.
Well, can we ever recover from this, Shane?
I don't see it happening. I just think it's going to get worse and worse.
Franz?
I'm talking about college football.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I believe. I think we're going to. I hate to say this because I want kids to get money to be able to play and take care of their families, and because we're talking about a brutal game that. I mean, Shane's, 52, 53 years old now. He's very fortunate because most of the people who spent as many years as he did in the National Football League are either dying or going to be dead soon. They're either dead or going to be dead soon. The average age is 57 years old for somebody who spends 3.5 years in the National Football League.
That makes Shane feel real good.
Damn, Franz only got a few years left.
Talk about
my point being
you better
is
get
that-
after it, buddy. What are you wasting your time on this program? Go do it some money.
Shane is in good health. How
Well,
many guys?
I hurt every day, though. I will tell you that.
Yeah.
How many guys do you know who you played with who can't get out of bed? Wilbur Marshall is basically crippled. I mean, I hate to say it about Wilbur. I love Wilbur to death, but Wilbur Marshall's basically crippled from all of the shots he took. It's a brutal game. So I want kids to be able to get their money. But here's the thing, we're going to need some kids to fail. We're going to need some collectives to go belly up because the market can correct it. But it's going to take that to happen. Sometimes you got to hit rock bottom before you can solve your issues. And until we solve the issues, nothing's going to happen, as Shane just said.
Well, I know a modern miracle in Terry Bradshaw, who nobody took a more of a beating than Bradshaw did. And he hurts, and he's 78, still out there trying to hit a golf ball, not very good, living a full life, does a good job on TV, makes a lot of money. And that is really amazing for a guy who played that many years and got hit hard. Joe Turkey Jones stuffed him on his neck and broke his neck, so Franz is right. And you know this better than anybody, Shane, because you were around it. Quarterbacks in the National Football League take a beating. Do you remember seeing that, Shane? Do you remember feeling that?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play a whole lot, but you saw it last night. Matt Stafford's one of the toughest dudes you'll find, and he took a beating last night. It's a brutal game. I mean, there's only a small percentage that gets that opportunity to do it. Well, I was going to say to do it for a living, but hell, college kids do it for a living now.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of college kids that are going to make more money that they won't even get an opportunity to play in the National Football League.
Yeah, they make more money playing college than what in the pros, yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is there's going to be a lot of guys that make a lot of money in colleges that don't ever even make a roster in the National Football League.
That's a great line, exactly. All right, so I know Shane, go ahead.
I was listening on a talk radio show today about college football, and one of the things that was mentioned was that you've got guys now who probably should get drafted or could get drafted in the last 3 rounds, and they're weighing their options and they're saying, wait a second, I make more money in college than I will as a 6th round draft pick. 6th round draft pick in the NFL, well, the money's pretty good, even so. I mean, $400,000 a year I've lived on less, believe it or not. I know it's hard for you guys to imagine, but I've lived on less than $400,000 a year on occasions in my life. But a 6th round draft pick, you got guys who make more than that playing college football. So
the one thing that they're going to need to start realizing too, though, is once you get in the National Football League, all your clock starts clicking or ticking, I should say, for all your benefits. You only get vested with all your benefits if you get 3 years and 3 games in. That's why the average career is 2.5. A lot of guys don't get that, but once you get past that 3 years and 3 games, it really makes things so much better when you get older. But nobody's worried about that. They're trying to get their money now.
Exactly. And like I said, though, the market is going to require some guy, unfortunately, crashing and burning, and for others to follow suit. It's going to take that. Market's always correct, and we either let the market correct itself or we set fire to the whole thing and try to start all over again. And I don't see any future in that.
I'm going to ask you two guys to carry this for a minute. I want you to give me your top 3 ways, some of them are obvious, that you could fix college football starting next year. I know you can't get the czar elected, but what are the 3 things you'd like to see done immediately? We know we need guidelines, and I was talking to Coach Spurrier about this, and he said, well, we need the leadership, and he said, oh, I forgot, there is none. That's the problem. So if you go first, Shane, your top 3 things you would do to...
I need that as a homework assignment, buddy.
Well, give us your best while I got to adjust something on my fan here. You and Franz took care of it. Go ahead, do it first, and Franz, you go second.
I think the biggest thing that I would deal with would be the transfer rule. I think they need to go back to the old way. If you transfer, you have to sit out. I think that would solve a lot of problems. And I don't want to hear about a coach. If your coach leaves, then it changes. You have an opportunity to transfer one time without sitting out. But I think you need to sit out a year if you go into the transfer portal.
Okay, here's what I think. I think that you should have to stay on campus until your sophomore year.
I don't have a problem with that either.
Whether that is as a true sophomore or if you redshirt a year, you got to be on campus for 3 years. Unless, as you mentioned, if the coach is fired or leaves, then you should have the option to go. Or I also believe this, that it's kind of like this kid that we signed, Keontae Goodwin, out of Kentucky. His mother got deathly ill with cancer, and he needed to go home. And I think that kid should be able to, a kid like that who has that situation should be able to transfer to the closest school nearest him that can accommodate him and his hardship situation. That's number one. Number 2, I think we're at a point in time where we're going to have to, this is a leadership thing, but I think we're going to have to abandon the NCAA completely when it comes to football. The NCAA does a dandy job running the College World Series for women and the baseball College World Series and the NCAA tournament. What they do not do is have a clue about football, and they have pointy-headed geeks who I think failed in everything else they tried, so they went to the NCAA and got a job, and they're in charge of football, and they're idiots. And I'm being kind.
All right.
And the third thing I think that has to happen, and it's going to eventually happen, is this: every conference has to set a standard for how much money your school can spend. MAC schools can't afford, for example, to spend $100,000 a player. The SEC schools can. You look at it, we're going to get $100 million are going to be coming in from the media contract. If you give 85 players $100,000, that's $8.5 million. That's a drop in the proverbial bucket. But each conference, I believe, is going to have to set a standard and say, this is how much, and if you cannot afford to, you're going to have to drop down to division or whatever.
All right, good stuff, friends. Good stuff. And I'll let Shane go here and watch the rest of his football. What's the score now, Shane? Tampa Bay was leading.
16-9.
16-9 Tampa. Yeah. And they were up like 16-3 or something? 16.
Yeah, they gave up. They busted a coverage, and somebody got wide open.
Yeah. The Bucks can get there, maybe. We'll see how Baker Mayfield holds up. Are you a Baker Mayfield fan, Shane?
I love Baker.
Yeah.
He's playing great. Yeah, I'm a big Baker guy.
Yeah.
I just like the way he plays.
I'm a big Shane Matthews guy, which is why I'm going to be on your show tomorrow, if you allow me, bright and early.
Yep, we'll allow you.
And then we'll go through it all again. Thank you, Shane.
All right.
Good stuff. Appreciate it, buddy.
All right, y'all take care.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for that, Franz. You do a very good job of keeping up with things that are important, especially. You see, Florida got a commit today, I guess it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Four-star receiver. Tell us
They got
what
a
you know about
receiver,
him.
and they got a defensive tackle out of Tallahassee.
All right. I saw that too. Tell us about what you know about that.
Well, the defensive tackle, I think, is a very serious commitment. A kid named Jalen Wiggins, who is
Yep.
big, strong, tough kid. He's a guy that can flat out get to, he's a certifiable home wrecker when it comes to college football, in that he gets into the line of scrimmage and he makes he creates havoc, and you got to have guys like this. This is why Ron Roberts was brought here, because Florida finished 13th out of 14 teams in the SEC in sacks this past
Tell us
year.
about Ron Roberts a little. We saw the story. What should we know we don't know about him?
Ron Roberts invented what's called the creeper defense. He did that when he was at Delta State. And then he goes in there, becomes a head coach at Southeastern Louisiana. From Southeastern Louisiana, he becomes Billy Napier's first defensive coordinator. What he does, though, is so important that Dave Aranda, who worked for him at one point in time, wins a national championship with it at LSU, and Dave Aranda brought him to Baylor, okay? And they've got to remember, in year 2 at Baylor, Dave Aranda and Baylor go to the Sugar Bowl, and they beat Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss in that game, and their defense was stifling. His defense is based on the premise that you got to get to the quarterback, and you got to cause indecision and quick. You got to make people decide too quickly what they're going to do, and you do it. One of the ways you do it is by making sure that the same guy isn't coming after the quarterback every single play. You bring it. The pass rush comes from different angles, but see, there's one other thing that he also believes in very strongly, which we didn't do a very good job of last year, which is it is legal, buddy. Believe it or not. I know it's hard for you to believe, but in the last 2 years we've seen it. It is not illegal for a defensive back to cover somebody.
I heard that rumor.
It is a rumor, but I have been told there is truth to it.
Yeah.
That you got to cover people. And this is the thing that they've got to be able to do. They got to cover people. They got to get after the quarterback. The two things that didn't happen this past year. He's also was the guy that mentored Austin Armstrong. Austin Armstrong was his GA. So I believe that this guy can bring some stability that we haven't had. I'm going to tell you one other thing that I am hearing. Now, I don't know. I can't substantiate it. I can only tell you I'm hearing this. I'm hearing Florida is going to bring in an offensive coordinator. I'm hearing
You
that.
believe it?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I think the job is so big, and I think Billy Napier realizes the job is so big that Nick was heavily involved in the defense, but he had a coordinator. All these years he had a coordinator. He got involved, but he got to oversee everything. He did not have to spend all of his time handling the defense because he had coordinators to do it. Kirby Smart did a pretty good job, don't you think? I think he also got mentored pretty well, and last time I checked, he's a pretty good head football coach as well.
Can you talk about the quarterback Florida got from Colorado State? Toby Garmer was talking about. You mentioned him today.
Clay Millen. When he started out at Nevada, when Jay Norvell went to Colorado State, He went with him, started 10 games when he was a redshirt freshman, threw for 1,910 yards, completed 72.2% of his passes, averaged, and this is key, buddy, and this is something that you know how I am about stats, 8.2 yards per pass attempt. That's critical. It's just like your running backs need to average at least minimum 4.5 yards a carry. Six is, you get closer to 5.5. That's like we did in 2022. We had a great running game. Last year, the running game was off, 4.27 yards per carry. Same thing is true with your passing game. Your passing game is very, very average if you're not averaging at least 7.5 or better per pass attempt. Those yards per carry, yards per pass attempt are the two most underrated stats in all of football.
Let's talk about something serious tonight, the death of a young man like Powell. If anybody knows, I've not heard a word of what happens. Someone said it was just 2 weeks ago he was lamenting the loss of a teammate. It's very sad that happens. And if anybody has any information they can quote from is accurate, I'd love to see it or hear about it. Don't know any details. We'll check on it again tomorrow. By the way, I'll have Urban Meyer on Wednesday or Thursday. We'll ask him about what I'm sure he knows something, since he did commit to Urban at one point in time. But I read something today after I read it, in the somber times we're in right now, and I was surprised the name that wrote it when I saw it. I'll read you this about Nick Saban. This is a former coach in the SEC. As great as Nick Saban is, he's been replaced in less than 48 hours. The reality of this life is we are all replaceable at work, with our friends, in social settings, but there's one place you're not replaceable, at home. Invest in eternal things with your family, because one day it's the only thing that will matter. Someone else will live in your house, someone else will work in your office, but no one else will ever be your kid's father or mother. Jim Donnan.
I agree with that. And
You expect to hear from Jim Donnan, though? I mean, really, that's amazing.
Here's the thing that I always appreciated about Steve Spurrier. Steve Spurrier wanted his coaches to have a life. Steve Spurrier didn't want his coaches there sleeping in the office every night and neglecting their families and things like that. Steve Spurrier thought that if your coach was home with his wife and family, he probably isn't trying to have an affair with a cheerleader on campus. How many times have we heard that story over the years? Way too many, don't you agree? And Steve Spurrier had it right that you got to have a life beyond it. You can't be so driven and so pushed that you neglect what's really important, and that is your foundation. You can't be Uncle Dad, which how many coaches really are? They're Uncle Dad. Kids see their father about as often as they see their uncle who lives on half the world away. And we've got to get some sanity back into this. The money has corrupted it. I got to tell you, the money has corrupted it.
No doubt.
Because how many, I'll use Billy Napier as an example. He makes $7.1 million a year. How many $7 million a year jobs are out there? Not too many. Not too many. So guess what? Because you're making $7 million and because you've got an assistant coach out there making $600,000, and you can say, hey, you could be coaching high school football and getting a $6,000 a year supplement to your teaching salary. But here, coaching my linebackers, you're making $627,000. So, $40,000 a year teaching plus a $6,000 supplement, or $627,000.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's
so
hard to.
You're gonna work till. So if you need to work till midnight to get this down, you do it.
All right, I'll give you one little quick story, which is just exactly what you'd be talking about. But you know what running newspapers? Money. You know why? When Al Newhart, the late great Al Newhart, who was a friend of mine, who founded USA Today, started taking newspapers public and began answering to the gods of Wall Street, journalism went out the back door. That's what killed it eventually. The money, everybody wants money. It made us. Listen, I remember your friend Jack Hairston, when we got hired, some of us got hired down at Today originally and got a bump in salary. Your friend Jack Hairston, who benefited from it obliquely, would take out his beer and say, "Here's to Florida Today." They raised everybody's salary in Florida in sports journalism. That was good. But in the end, who you answer to is who is going to be your God, basically. And in the end, Wall Street won out. In the end, they wound up squeezing the life out of every paper they could and throw them in the garbage can. So you're right. Sometimes money can spoil things. Let's end it with a happy note. By the way, R.I.P. to Carl Kaufman, my friend who used to run the Hilton in Ocala and was also the voice of the Gator Growl for years and was part of Rising Stars, who died suddenly at 67 over the holidays. And sorry to hear that. Here's a good story about Jed Fish. Jed Fish, your guy, okay? New Washington head coach, has a crazy backstory. I read this someplace today. He was a regular freshman at the University of Florida in the 1990s who dreamed about getting into football with his roommate. After getting passed over for the Gators equipment manager job, Fish left the notes on Steve Spurrier's car every day until one day Spurrier hired him as a student assistant. His roommate, current Philadelphia Eagles GM Howie Roseman.
Yep.
So, nice little story to end the night there. So
and he's a guy that went on there, becomes an assistant coach at PK Young, then becomes Spurrier's graduate assistant here, and look at where it's taken. Look at where it's taken him in 22 years. 21, 22 years. Head coach now of the Washington Huskies. I have no doubt that he's an outstanding successor to Kalen DeBoer. And I'll say this about Kalen DeBoer, and I wrote about it today, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
If it's about the wins and the law, if it's about being able to coach football, I don't think they could have gotten a better coach. Just what I'm talking about, coach. He's not, the coaching isn't going to determine his success at Alabama. What's going to determine his success goes back to something that you know and I know that Steve Spurrier has put up with his entire life, going back to his sophomore year. Everybody in the state of Florida knows Steve Spurrier. Steve Spurrier hasn't had a day as long since his sophomore year that he can sit down and enjoy a meal without somebody coming up recognizing him. Hey, coach, goodness, you're my hero. I've known you. You know the drill, and you've seen it. You've been at the same table with him when it happened. And
only now it's his business.
Now it is his business.
Yeah.
But even so, at his business, he can go have dinner in a private room and not get interrupted. Have his friends come join him, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
This kind of stuff, I think, doomed Will Muschamp. I think Will Muschamp was a good football coach.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people would disagree with me, but I think Will Muschamp...
I think USC just could never get the right combination things.
Well, I don't think that he had the time to deal with finding the right combination of things because he had to spend so much time learning how to be a head coach. What did our dear friend Urban Meyer do? He went to Bowling Green. And at Bowling Green, he was everything from selling hot dogs to inviting kids. And then he went to Utah, next step up, and he learns to deal with it. When he got to Florida, he was a polished product who knew how to handle the alumni, knew how to get on the hamburger steak and green pea circuit.
Yeah.
Will never had that. And
I feel a little sorry for Will. I feel like he came in after following Urban, and which is a difficult thing to do. And he had all the right genealogy. He grew up in Gainesville. He loved the Gators. Remember, he used to say he played in the backyard, and he was the defensive back. It was
Tony Lilly.
Tony Lilly was his guy. He was Tony Lilly all the time. He had Gator blood in him, and yet somehow or another just couldn't make it work for him. So I just saw a stat just now. I was trying to find it about the stat that that Merch ended up like 4th in the country in accuracy or something. I was going to read it to you, but I run across it. Anyway, all right, Francis, good job as always. You can read him on Gatorbait. Don't forget, by the way, to subscribe to this podcast, please. Go down the bottom right there and hit subscribe. It's free. We need your subscriptions. They help a lot. And GatorbaitMedia.com, of course, is our daily website. Go to it and click on and see if it's a membership that fits you. You get to read the great writers like Franz Beard. By the way, in his element now, not that he's not good in football, he's one of the best, but he's the best basketball writer I know around. So if you want to know about them, and by the way, we might, you promised me good things are ahead after the Arkansas win.
I think that Florida is very, very capable. Tomorrow's going to be a real nice litmus test for them. They've got to show that they're capable of playing in that hostile arena. I think the arena at Ole Miss had something to do with it. It was really, really hostile. They've been on the road before, but they had not been in an atmosphere like that. Most of their games were in neutral site that were road games. Like Baylor, they played them in New York, and Michigan, they played them in Charlotte, etc. like that. This was big-time hostility. And as Todd said today, this is going to be about 10 times worse than anything you can think about. They've been piping in the loud music so that they can see if they can hear it from the sidelines.
Mike White is one of the most disliked guys I know in college sports right now. He did something far worse than Trevor Etienne did. He took the whole program, went to Athens. So anyway, he's not a popular guy around here, and I liked him. I didn't know the kind of guy he was, so he'd cut and run at a better deal. I guess that's what it's about.
In retrospect, buddy, I'm going to say this, and I've never said it online before, but I was thinking about it today, and I believe that this is what happened. The Kentucky game in 2022, that's when a couple weeks later, Mike was gone. His dad was here. And I talked to his dad probably for 30 minutes afterward. In retrospect, I believe his dad was already brokering deals for him, because Mike loses to Texas A&M in overtime in the SEC tournament. Chris Spears and I were there down in Tampa. This is on a Thursday. Friday goes by. Everybody's speculating what's going on, but not really all that much. Come Saturday, we find out that Mike White is leaving for Georgia. 2 days later. I don't think Georgia just all of a sudden out of the clear blue makes a call and says, "Hey, Mike, are you happy at Florida?" "No." "Would you want to come here and coach?" "Sure." I don't think it happened like that. I think the deal was brokered in advance. I think he knew going into that Texas A&M game. I think he knew he was going to leave. I really believe that. And I like Mike. Don't get me wrong. I like Mike. And if Mike White were to come on and say you're a bald-faced liar and I never would do something like that, I'd take him at his word.
But you're right. That's what it felt like. I didn't know much about it. It felt like to me it's all of a sudden it happened all awfully quick. There had to be some shenanigans going on someplace. And if that's the case, he's coaching one place and he's dealing with another team in the SEC, the rival on the backside. That's just not a good look. He's some of Blue Blood family in college basketball. I guess we'll have to wait to find out if that's true. But a lot of people do not like Mike White right now.
Well, we're going to get them 1 week from Saturday.
Yeah.
Here at the O-Dome.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to be very nice.
Now, hang on hang on 1 second while I tell people about Titan MRI, one of your favorite places as well.
Absolutely.
Now, one of our great sponsors. Titan MRI is worth the short drive to Gainesville. No insurance is no problem. You can pay with cash or card with same-day scheduling available. Because you can start feeling good today about the fact that Titan MRI is North Central Florida's premier independent MRI facility. Come see why hundreds of patients are visiting our Gainesville location from Ocala, Marion County, and the villages. That's TitanMRI.com. Thank them as one of our sponsors. Thank you, Franz, as a great contributor, and for your columns you're writing online. The great Franz Beard. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, buddy. And hey, folks, let me just throw one thing at you. Bud Light is going to be Mr. Bud Light officially again come Saturday.
Going to be a Mrs. Bud Light. There's going to be a Mrs. Bud Light.
There's going to be a Mrs. Bud Light.
Yeah.
I got it, and I want to throw something at you. You've been my dear friend for 50-something years, and I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know you knew Joni and loved her, and we're sad about losing her 6 months ago now. And this happened 2 months after I'll just go ahead and say it. I could hardly breathe for 2 months. You know me, and I was really in a bad way. So God sent me a few angels, friends, and sent me Dawn Ford, a girlfriend of mine from 63 years ago. We met up somehow or the other. I don't know how, it's a God thing. And we began talking on the phone, fell back in love, and decided to get married in the remaining time. Don't have a lot of time left, friends, and as someone said...
You're going to outlive a lot of folks, Bud Light.
Well, I will say this. One of my friend Laurie's daughters said that Buddy's very lucky. He gets to marry the two women he loved the most in life. And I feel very blessed for that. So, appreciate it.
God's always good, and he takes care of us.
For sure, Francis. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, Franz Beard. We will not have the Thursday show because of I got things to get ready for. And but we will have Harry Meyer on Thursday. We won't have the regular Gator bunch. And because of that, Ben True will join us tomorrow night. Well, we got David Whitley on, so instead. I want to tell you once again about our friends at Renstar Medical Research. They're great people. They're supportive of the community. They've been supporting this program. They come from Gator family, Gator blood. They have a proven reputation as a high-quality, patient-centered clinical research facility right there in Ocala. Renstar Medical Research brings a cutting-edge research trials to Ocala in areas like Alzheimer's, dementia, psoriasis, osteoarthritis, migraines, and fibromyalgia, along with many other conditions that affect us here in our community. Since their inception in 1998, Renstar has participated in more than 700 clinical trials. 700, that's a bunch. Continue to partner with prominent pharmaceutical and biomedical companies throughout the medical industry. If you want to be a part of this research that helps us all find better medication, you can go to renstar.net, check out their dates and times and how you can qualify for one of these clinical research trials, may even get compensation for time and travel. That's Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Thank you, folks, for joining me tonight. We're back tomorrow night with more of the same. And thank you to our guests who make the show. Good night, everybody.